এর আগে আপনারা একটা বাংলা পোয়েট্রি কোলাজ শুনলেন। গত বছরও আমরা একটা বাংলা পোয়েট্রি কোলাজ দেখেছিলাম, তখনই আমার মনে হয়েছিল যে একটা ইংলিশ কোলাজ যদি রাখা যেতে পারে। তো এবার যখন আমি ওদেরকে বললাম, সঞ্জাত, উদয়তি, ওদেরকে যে একটা ইংলিশ কোলাজ আমরা করতে চাই, ওরা সবাই প্রত্যেকে ভীষণ এনথুসিয়াস্টিক আমি দেখলাম। তো আমাকে খুব বেশি খাটতে হয়নি। আমরা আগে ভেবেছিলাম 3টে সেশনে এটাকে ভাগ করব, যেখানে ব্রিটিশ পোয়েট্রি, আমেরিকান পোয়েট্রি এবং ট্রান্সলেটেড পোয়েট্রির একটা সেগমেন্ট রাখা হবে। তারপর টাইমের প্রবলেমের জন্য আমরা ওটাকে শ্রিঙ্ক করেছি এবং আজকে আমরা শুধু ব্রিটিশ বা ইংলিশ পোয়েট্রি কোলাজটা প্রেজেন্ট করব। তো এই মুহূর্তে আপনারা যা শুনবেন পুরোটাই ওদের হার্ডওয়ার্ক বলা যেতে পারে। ওরা নিজেদের সময় বের করে যতটা রিহার্সেল করেছে এবং এত কম সময়ের মধ্যে একটা বিদেশি ভাষার উচ্চারণ শৈলী এবং উচ্চারণ প্রথা আয়ত্ত করা তো খুব একটা সহজ ব্যাপার নয়। আপনারা প্রত্যেকে ওদেরকে একটা বিগ রাউন্ড অফ অ্যাপ্লজ দিয়ে যদি একটু এনথুসিয়াস্ট করেন। Poetry can be interpreted as different entities by different kind of people. But after traveling 5,000 years of a golden heritage, it cannot be ignored that poetry is undoubtedly one of the most subtle, serene, yet powerful medium of expression. Poetry has had a long, rich history and definitely can't be limited to one particular language and culture or some languages and cultures. Poetry's history starts from the age of ancient civilizations, and from then on, the melody of poetry has immersed with the aching of our hearts, the fancy of our souls. From the epic of Gilgamesh to Iliad, from Abhigyanam Shakuntalam to Annoda Mongol, from Prelude to Endymion, from Don Juan to the Raven, everything is poetry. But today we will only speak about English language poetry and about poetry from a particular culture which is indigenous and cosmopolitan at the same time. English has always been one of the most important languages which has produced some of the most memorable verses of poetry in the history. So this is our humble tribute to poetry as a whole and British or English poetry specifically. In this segment, we have chosen a particular era of English poetry which has portrayed the highest potential of poetry written in English language. That is, the Romantic era. Romantic era had many different poets who added up to its literary prosperity and large-scale popularity. But there are 5 poets particularly who represent the Romantic era most strongly and appropriately. Hence, we will be covering those 5 poets of that era who represent the Romantic era in its fullest. We begin with a poet who is regarded as the pioneer and one of the pillars or harbingers of Romantic era's poetry. Born on 7th April 1770 in Cumberland region of England, the eternal legend of modern narrative style magnum opus, one whose name has been associated with daffodils, the solitary reaper, and other innumerable scintillating images of nature. The poet laureate, the oldest of the Romantics, William Wordsworth.
Composed upon Westminster Bridge. Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. This city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning. Silent, bare, ships, towers, domes, theaters and temples lie open unto the fields and to the sky. All bright, a calm so deep, the river glideth at his own sweet will. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still.
Let us move on to our next poet. Now we speak about such a poet without whom the Romantic era is incomplete. He was born on 21st October 1772 in Great Britain. He, along with Wordsworth, created and published such a poetry collection which established the world of Romantic poetry. romantic ballads. If Wordsworth be the harbinger of romantic poetry, then our next poet ought to be the sustainer of romantic poetry. We speak about a poet, literary critic, philosopher, theologian, a man of many sides, Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
Work without hope. All nature seems at work. Slugs leave their lair, the bees are stirring, birds are on the wing, and winter slumbering in the open air wears on his smile a dream of spring. And I, the while, the sole unbusy thing, nor honey make, nor bear, nor build, nor sing. Yet well I ken the banks where amaranths blow, have traced the fount whence streams of nectar flow. Bloom, O ye amaranths, bloom for whom ye may. Bloom for me ye bloom not, glide rich streams away. With lips unbrightened, breathless brow, I stroll, and would you learn the spells that drowse my soul? Work without hope draws nectar in a sieve, and hope without an object cannot live.
Now we move on to the next or second generation of romantic poetry. Our next poet is another person whose name is intimately attached to English poetry and English literature in general. Born on 22nd January 1788 in London, the person who came out of his aristocratic cocoon to explore the world of poetry. An inspiration for many of his successors and for generations to come. One of the brightest names in the history of English literature, George Gordon Byron, or widely known as Lord Byron.
She walks in beauty. She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes. Thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace, which waves in every raven trees, or softly lightens over face, where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how sweet their dwelling place. And on that cheek and over that brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win, the tints that glow, but tell of days in goodness spent. A mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent.
Now we move on to a poet who was not confined to his poetic career alone, but explored multiple spheres and established his name as a successful radical thinker in political and social domain. He was one of those many poets who could not achieve recognition and appreciation during his lifetime. Born on 4th August 1792 in West Sussex, England, an inspiration for many renowned English poets of this successive generation like Robert Browning, Thomas Hardy, William Butler Yeats, none other than the obscure, the ambiguous, the enigmatic Percy Bysshe Shelley.
Ozymandias. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lips and sneer of cold commends tell that its sculptor well those passion writs which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things the hand that mocked them and the heart that fade. And on the pedestal these words appear: My name is Ozymandias, king of the kings. Look on my work, ye mighty in despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of the colossal wax, boundless and bare, the lone and level sand stretch far away.
My favorite from the Romantic era, the one who learned young, achieved greatness young, and eventually died young. I don't want to waste much time talking about him, as this poet doesn't require any verbal introduction. His poetry, his verses define him. Born on 31st October 1795 in Moorgate, London, which makes him the youngest of the Romantics, one such poet who wrote the inscription for his own tombstone, "Here lies one whose name was writ in water." But his name will forever be imprinted in our hearts, the eternal, the evergreen, the immortal, the revenant, the one who got resurrected, John Keats.
O John Melancholy, no, go not too late, neither twist Wilp's bane, tight-rooted for its poisonous vine, nor suffer thy pale forehead to be kissed by nightshade, ruby grape of Proserpine. Make not your rosary of yew-berries, nor let the beetle nor the death moth be your mournful Psyche, nor the downy owl a partner in your sorrow's mysteries. For shade to shade will come too drowsily and drown the wakeful languish of the soul. But when the melancholy fit shall fall, sudden from heaven like a weeping cloud, that fosters the droop-headed flowers all, and hides the green hill in an April shroud, then glut thy sorrow on a morning rose, or on the rainbow of the salt sand wave, or on the wealth of globed peonies, or, if thy mistress some rich anger shows, imprison her soft hand and let her rave, and feed deep, deep upon her peerless eyes.
She dwells with beauty,
Beauty that must die, and joy, whose hand is ever at his lips, beating adieu and aching pleasure nigh, turning to poison while the bee-mouth sips. Aye, in the very temple of delight, veiled melancholy has her sovereign shrine. Though seen of none save him whose strenuous tongues can burst joy's grape against his palate fine, his soul shall test the sadness of her might, and be among her cloudy trophies hung.
So this was our presentation of English poetry. It was a humble attempt by our students, so please appreciate them with a big round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.